What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We're here for the UFC Vegas 14 recap, and of course, we'll be covering Bellator 252, which happened on Thursday night as well. But Paul Felder returned to the UFC Octagon after initially retiring all the way back in March now, and he put on a very valiant performance despite taking the fight on 5 days' notice. He showed up and showed that he belongs to be in the UFC and that deserves more so to be in that top 10 conversation for the lightweight division. Of course, he put on a fantastic showing, but Rafael dos Anjos came in and just showed that little bit more, showed why the lightweight or former lightweight champion, is on that resurgence, maybe on that glove Teixeira, Michael Bisping sort of level. Donald Cerrone, perhaps you could say, he's in that sort of bracket now where he looks like he could be making a little bit of a resurgence late on in his career. And, who knows where we can get him. Obviously, he was meant to fight Islam Makhachev, and equally, he deserves as much credit for taking this fight on such short notice as Paul Felder does. But Paul Felder obviously took the fight on, Monday night, Tuesday morning, of course, in the UK. And, he made the weight cut fine, albeit, from all accounts from himself, Thursday night was hell for him to make weight Friday morning. But he put on a 5-round performance, and you see, that impassioned rant, you could almost say, that he put on at the end in terms of aiming at everyone who missed weight on Friday night or Friday morning, for the weigh-ins. He went at them because obviously he didn't have the camp for this. He stepped in on 5 days' notice, having, just a training for a triathlon at his disposal, and he looked the best we've probably seen him in a long time. I mentioned on the preview the fact that he's not had to think about this fight for 6 weeks, 7 weeks in a camp. He just literally switched on for it on Tuesday night, and obviously he had the stresses, he had the panic setting in, but he looked very relaxed in there. He looked like someone who was stepping a mark in there, and almost proven to himself more than us that he's not done in there. And the fact that he's come out after he'd lost and said, you know what, I've got much, much more to give. He didn't get knocked out in the first round or the second round. He didn't get, dominated. He got comfortably beat, but he put on a performance where you're not, we're looking at the Donald Cerrone's now, the Robbie Lawlers of this world, and going, maybe it's time to put the gloves down aside and step away from the octagon and fighting as a whole. But we didn't see that from Paul Felder. We look like someone who could continue for at least 2-3 years if he's fighting once or twice a year even. Obviously, he's got his analytical work for the UFC, and he does a fantastic work on that broadcast team. And rightfully so, that's where we're going to be seeing him for the foreseeable future, I'd imagine. But for fighting, there's some good matchups out there for him. Donald Cerrone, perhaps, he wants to come back to the 155. That'd be a fight that, I'm sure a lot of people would tune in to watch. It'd be probably a main event as well. Paul Felder now back-to-back main events this year. I think it's the first time he's been a main event this year, obviously, against Dan Hooker. So to do it twice in a row, obviously the second one more unexpected than the first. But he's won everyone's hearts. He's almost done the Dustin Poirier story there, the Don Cerrone, even maybe the Masvidal 2019, he won the people's hearts, albeit Masvidal's, very much ruined that this year. But Paul Felder, we look at the rankings, of course, Kevin Lee, Al Quinta, Diego Ferreira. There's some big matchups there, all for him. Obviously, Islam Makhachev will probably want to step in against someone of higher notoriety now because he obviously missed that chance to fight Rafael dos Anjos, who's going to come in at number 7, number 8 of the rankings as well. But, let's have a quick look at the rankings actually from the 10 downwards. Obviously, we've only got the top 10 on the graphic. But you look there, Gregor Gillespie versus Paul Felder is a great fight. Drew Dober is a great fight. Donald Cerrone, as I mentioned, is at 15th, just on the cusp of that lightweight rankings. And he's looking to stick at 155. And also you look at Beneil Dariush, of course. Again, some great fights all beneath him. And some above them, maybe you could say he deserves that Dan Hooker rematch now after coming so close against him. But again, for Rafael dos Anjos, Stephen, it opens up the lightweight division for him again. And obviously, I'd like to see him versus Charles Oliveira. I think Charles Oliveira deserves a big fight after that win against Kevin Lee in Brazil. And I'd like to see RDA versus Oliveira probably in Brazil as well, if the world allows it, you could say. So to speak, with COVID and whatnot, if we can get an event in Brazil like we normally do in February, March. then I'd love to see that fight. But even if it's just in the UFC Apex on Fight Island, I do think Oliveira RDA is a fight to make. But again, RDA versus Dan Hooker, and obviously he called out Conor McGregor. Obviously that fight was meant to happen back in 2016, and we know what happened after that fight. Obviously RDA got injured. Nate Diaz stepped in. We saw the culmination of a fantastic year for Conor McGregor, which ended that year with him defeating Eddie Alvarez, who beat RDA for the title, and obviously became champ on November 12th, 2016. So yes, do we want to see that fight? Of course we want to see that fight. McGregor versus anyone, makes money, sells pay-per-views, and it would be a bit of a nostalgia trip. And we don't know what we're going to see from McGregor this year. Obviously, by all accounts, he's going to be facing Dustin Poirier at 257. But if something miraculous happens out that doesn't happen, RDA steps in on short notice, yeah, I'd be down for that fight. I don't think there'd be many who wouldn't be. It's just whether would it have the same appeal as it did in 2016. Obviously, RDA was champion, then McGregor was a featherweight champion. Now, neither of them are champion, and I don't know if the crowd would be a bit more like, the reception they got for McGregor Cerrone, where you're almost going, McGregor's cherry picking this opponent to get an easy win, especially if it's Dustin Poirier. Like, God forbid Dustin Poirier doesn't get an injury or something within the next 8 weeks that we've got, 9 weeks that we've got until UFC 2007 is supposed to be happening. But if RDA was to step in, it would be a great belt. It would be a great belt that anyone would want to see and pay money for, I'd imagine. But we'll have a quick look at the statistics from Saturday night, of course. 134 strikes out of 226 there for Paul Felder, who put on a fantastic clinic as well. His striking game was on point. Some of the freshest and most clinical striking that we've seen from him in a long time. 98 of those were, of course, significant strikes at 190. That was he got one takedown out of two. I think in the fourth or fifth round there, right at the end, when he was bleeding from his forehead after a great left there from RDA. I originally thought it was a headbutt, but obviously you see RDA, the fresher you could say of the two. Obviously he had that full camp, albeit had to switch opponents on very short notice. He had a full camp to come into this one on, and it looked like it benefited him a little more. But again, Paul Felder looked like a man destined to get the win. You was expecting him to almost pull off the upset in round 4, round 5, and get a knockout win. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. RDA obviously used his experience and his whereabouts within the octagon and what he learned in his very illustrious career that he only had to grind down the clock. But a fantastic performance and a fantastic fight, and one that will probably got rid with one of the fights of the year, maybe, especially for the main event at least. We've not had a plethora of great main events. Obviously, the pay-per-views have been somewhat fantastic, but it's up there in the top 5, I'd imagine. And it probably, it might just eclipse Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker, which again was a fantastic fight. But yes, we'll move on. Somebody who didn't take too much long in the cage was obviously Khaos Williams versus Abdul Alhassan, of course. Fantastic performance from him, from what we saw of him for 31 seconds of the fight. That stare down from the start, he was staring down Abdul Hassan from the walkout pretty much. He was just all eyes on him, laser focus on him, and there was an absolute laser on that right hand that knocked him out cold as well. An absolute cold knockout, probably one of the knockouts of the year. I think Buckley's probably up there with that one, with the spinning back kick to the chin of Empa Kasangane, poor Flair, who's hopefully will be fighting again soon after that medical suspension. But we'll take a quick look at the stats, of course. Not too much to delve into in terms of strikes and significant strikes. 5 out of 10 landed there for Khaos Williams, but of course he only needed 1 on the night. I think he hit him when Alhassan was down for a little bit as well, so he got some extra money, extra hits in there for his good night of work that earned him a 50k bonus. Obviously there, 100% strike differential there for Alhassan, obviously 2 out of 2, but unfortunately got KO'd in that first round. And it was a fantastic co-main event to set up what was an even better main event. Now, wasn't the best fight of the night, of course, but Ashley Yoder did get back into the win column, back up to 8-6 after beating Miranda Granger, who was 7-1, suffered her second defeat of the career, and she almost got submitted in that second round, of course, saved by the bell, of course. But Ashley Yoder did put on a performance that was worthy to get herself back in the win column, of course. And we'll take a quick look at the stats again. 151 out of 184, 26 out of 42 of them were significant, and she got a 50% takedown on the night. Miranda Granger, on the other hand, 87 out of 107 and 33 out of 51. So she actually landed more significant strikes, but unfortunately she didn't get the decision on the night, and actually had to put in a very gritty and grinding performance. And had she had 20 seconds left in that second round, she would have come away with a very deserved submission win. Now, Sean Strickland, we'll go straight into the results, of course. He pulled off a fantastic second round TKO on his after just 2 weeks from getting a win over Jack Marshman. He came back, returned on the night, and put in a fantastic performance against Brendan Allen. 53 out of 92 strikes there, 51 out of 90 of them significant from Allen, of course, but 106 out of 166 strikes for Strickland. 94 of them out of 161 significant, and he also got one takedown for what was a very good night's work for Sean Strickland. He's joining those that are taking a risk in 2020, and it's paying off for him, of course. He's not quite on the level of Kevin Holland and Khaos Williams for activity. Obviously, they've had 4, and Kevin Holland's going on to have a 5th fight. Well, actually, Khaos had 3 fights going into a 4th one against Leon Edwards this year. But Sean Strickland, 2 weeks apart, 2 wins, and a job very well done at the weekend. Now, obviously, we had the debut of Cory McKenna up against Kay Hansen, and this one had a little bit of a controversial ending to it with the scoring of the scorecards. A lot of people thought Kay Hansen done enough. I personally gave it to Cory McKenna. I thought she'd won the first round and the second round just enough. I definitely thought she'd won the second round, and I do think Kay Hansen definitely won the third round. So you can see where that first round was close. Obviously, Kay Hansen, a fantastic grappler, fantastic clinch work on the night as well. Both of those two, in terms of striking, look very close. I did think Cory McKenna was just edging it, but every time she got into that pocket, obviously she's got had the shorter reach against Kay Hansen. Kay Hansen was putting some good work in on the body and striking and getting the takedowns as well. And that ended that first round. She looked like she was going to get the rear naked choke in Cory McKenna, but McKenna, as gritty as she is, she worked out of it very well, and she kept striking. She was Hansen had the back of Cory McKenna, and McKenna was putting those strikes in, and I think that's what won her the end of that round, the ability that she showed, whereas Hansen almost frozen in the moment, probably not expecting to be hit, whilst underneath Cory McKenna and being in what you'd say is a dominant position, but Cory McKenna made it work for her. Whether that's a shorter range, maybe that's the height. She had an inch advantage on the night in terms of height, but she made it work, and I gave it 29-28 to Cory McKenna, and a deserved win for her as well. A fantastic first win, the first Welsh woman to get a win in the UFC as well, and she's got a huge future ahead of her. Obviously, 6-1 she moves up to now, and it'd be interesting to see what they do with her next, because obviously Kay Hansen was someone who was in that top 30, top 25, that strawweight division, which is now getting more and more stacked by the week, and of course she's a good representation of what is coming through the Contender Series now, Cory McKenna, which obviously culminates in the final episode tomorrow night, of course, on Dana White's Contender Series, episode 10. She was one of those on that series that got a contract and obviously made a debut, which we've had a couple of now. We've had, I think 5 or 6 who've already made their debut since winning their contract this year, which is phenomenal. And again, it reiterates that importance to take risks in 2020, and you get rewarded for it. Now, we did have a first, I think, in the UFC, at least a first in a long time, which was Rhys McKee. Unfortunately, he suffered his second loss in the UFC after losing to Alex Morono, of course, in what was a fantastic, almost brutal win for Morono. He put a fantastic experience performance and showed that maybe Rhys McKee, albeit he's only 25, he's still very young, still got a lot to learn. Maybe he's not quite ready for the UFC. Maybe he does need to take a step down, maybe back to Cage Warriors, perhaps. Get a couple of fights in there, get a couple of wins, get the confidence back up, and maybe we see the story culminating in a return to the UFC, maybe. It'd be nice to see him get one more chance, but we know how ruthless the UFC is. And the loss to Khaos Williams was, you could say that was a lucky loss, almost. One that, you can sweep under the carpet and return from. But the loss on Saturday night was a little bit more not concerning, but he showed there's a lot of work to do in his game. I'm sure he will do that in due course. As we mentioned, he's only 25 years old. A lot of work and a lot of learning to do. And by the time he's 29, 30, I'd expect him to be a UFC regular because he has got the talent. He just needs to iron out a few creases in the game that he has. But yeah, Rhys McKee, he lost his mouth guard underneath the octagon. It fell through the crevices of the cage somehow, and obviously there was a huge search for it in hope to get the bout underway, which it did. It took 2, 3, 4 minutes, which gave them a good rest. Both fighters that needed it. Obviously, Rhys McKee could say was getting, the advantage of that round when it did happen, but again, he was still taking a lot of damage. Even Jason Herzog was, offering his mouth guard to Rhys McKee. Why he has a mouth guard, I don't know. Though whether it was expecting to be on a short notice fight. Obviously, we had a lot dropping out over the weekend. Maybe Jason Herzog was getting ready to step in there as a fighter and not as a referee. But it was funny to watch nonetheless, and a bit of light-hearted nature from the UFC. Now, of course, Bellator 252, which we mentioned, did happen over the weekend, of course, and both Patricio, Pitbull, and Emmanuel Sanchez progressed to the semi-final of the Featherweight Grand Prix that we had. Obviously, it continued after an 8-month or 9-month now absence after the cancellation or postponement because of COVID. And Emmanuel Sanchez put an absolute beating on Daniel Vaicho, and I feel for Daniel Vaicho, but again, I gained a massive respect for Vaicho as well. The beatdown he took in the second round, the fact that he came out of there with his chin up and his heart in the fight and still went for another 15 minutes. This wasn't a 3-round fight. This was a 5-round fight with a lot on the line. And, Emmanuel Sanchez had to work. He didn't, get the second round knockout as many people were, you was expecting with the amount of damage that Daniel Vaicho took on the night. But somehow he grinded out, and we got a decision win for Emmanuel Sanchez in the end. He won the rematch. Obviously, went 2-0 against Daniel Vaicho. Maybe it does just seem to be one of those bouts where Emmanuel Sanchez has his number. But the main event that we had, Pitbull versus Pedro Cavallo, a lot of blood, a lot of rivalry that went into this. Obviously, SBG, these two have been back and forth many times in the past. And Pitbull left no questions unanswered. He flatlined Pedro Cavallo, with all due respect to Cavallo, and showed why he is the featherweight title holder currently and deserves maybe a shot in the UFC. A lot of people are calling for it now. You see a lot of people asking the questions, would he beat Volkanovski? That would be an interesting battle. I do think Volkanovski, having that experience as a former rugby player, a former 200-pounder, I think he probably would kick the legs out of Pitbull. But again, Pitbull has the power and the explosiveness, maybe of Tyron Woodley, you could say. He reminds me of a featherweight Tyron Woodley, perhaps. The way he can explode on opponents and knock them out. And he put a sublime performance, one that you could almost resonate with McGregor versus Alvarez this time. But, every time Pitbull threw a shot, it landed, and Pedro Cavallo was hurt from it and damaged from it. And eventually, obviously, we couldn't see that fight continue anymore. And these two moved forward. Emmanuel Sanchez will face Pitbull in the semi-final, with Darren Caldwell versus Adrian McKee happening this Thursday as well in the other semi-final. So we will see at least one finalist this weekend be announced for the Bellator Featherweight Grand Prix. A fantastic product from Bellator as well. The Grand Prix, they're absolutely phenomenal. And it's something that is their USP and something that they thrive doing. And it'll be interesting to see what the next one is. Whether it's a women's featherweight, or I think a women's strawweight, or even bantamweight could do a nice Grand Prix, especially with Kerry Melendez winning also on that card. Aaron Biko with a fantastic finish as well on that card. It was a beautiful event, Bellator 252. Albeit maybe after the weekend it went a bit under the radar. Before the weekend, Bellator was definitely the major promotion this weekend, and was winning on paper, you could say. But maybe after the events that happened over the weekend, all attention went back to Paul Felder and the UFC. But yeah, I would like to see Pitbull in the UFC. Give them a shot. You got the Korean Zombie, you got Brian Ortega, you got Max Holloway, you've got Yair Rodriguez, the beat Magomed Sharipov, of course. It'd be interesting to see where Pitbull would rank between those guys. And I think he'd rank pretty highly. I think he'd be in that top 5 for sure. Obviously, we've seen Michael Chandler go over to UFC now this year. That Chandler and Pitbull have had their their battles at lightweight. I don't want to see Pitbull at lightweight. If I was being honest, if he was in the UFC, it would be a featherweight move for me personally, just because I think there's some better matchups there for him, and maybe a better route for him to become champion should that situation arise, better than it would be at lightweight maybe. But yes, outside the UFC and Bellator, of course, we'll have a look at some of the news that's happened over the weekend. Obviously, Cage Warriors did announce that they're going to the US. Obviously, Graham Boyd and Great Promotions license, at least from the California State Athletic Commission or Committee, and we have got the wrong one up here at the moment. Give me 1 second. We'll wing it anyway. But anyway, yes. Let's see. Got it here. Give me a second, guys. But yeah, basically, Cage Warriors is coming to. Here we are. We got it finally. I saved the wrong file name, but yes, you see here, Graham Boyd making the announcement over the weekend with MMA Junkie. Of course, we'll be building a roster here in California and the US, and we'll bring over the guys from our main roster to go against them. We'll get the guys who are making waves over in the UK and the guys who are making waves in the US and put on some big shows, both in the US and back home. Of course, Cage Warriors is the leading European promotion in terms of UK talent, at least. But they put on some fantastic events. Obviously, their schedule this year got almost curtailed, but they adapted and brought the Trilogy Series, which was a huge success. And we've got one in December. It looks like we've got one in the New Year as well. So it's going to be interesting what their move is with America, and maybe some road trips coming up, who knows. But I do like Cage Warriors. I do like what they're about. And obviously, we've seen a lot of them fighting in Manchester, of course. But it'd be interesting to see what they do either in the States and who they sign. I'd imagine to see some big names being signed, some up and coming talents, because we do know that Cage Warriors are someone who help build up young talent and newly professional fighters, you could say, who are looking to make a name for themselves before going on to those bigger organizations like the UFC or Bellator. Maybe we see a tournament maybe from the US versus UK. Maybe they develop their own sort of, maybe a PFL season, UK versus US, or they develop their own Ultimate Fighter series, similar to that, where we have the UK versus US roster on a New Year's Eve or something, a one night sort of tournament or card with US versus the UK talent. I think that'd be a very good move for them, especially if we saw the tongue-in-cheek comment from Graham Boyd and said Cage Warriors is to feed a league in Europe, while Bellator to feed a league in the US. Now it seems like that's maybe that tongue-in-cheek comment was building towards this one, and it'd be interesting to see where Cage Warriors find themselves in the US market, because I think they're going to make some huge waves, and especially on the UFC Fight Pass, they've got a network there already. Whether they can get themselves on ESPN Plus in the States would be huge as well. And of course, we mentioned PFL before, that they have signed Fabricio Verdum. And of course, Peter Murray, the CEO of PFL, came out and said, "I'm excited to announce Fabricio Verdum, the Tom Brady of MMA, has signed with the Professional Fighters League. Fabricio is one of the greatest heavyweights of all time and knows when he steps into the PFL cage, this coming season, it's more than a fight." Now he joins the likes of course, Rory McDonald, Kelly Harrison, Brendan Loughnane, Lance Palmer, Emiliano Sordi, some fantastic fighters. Mohammed Usman, who is the brother of Kamaru Usman, is in the heavyweight division. Justin Willis. There's going to be some fantastic names in the PFL 2021 season, and hopefully it does happen. It has to happen, really, for them to continue the organization and to keep their fighters who will have to sit on the sidelines for a year out. Now, of course, Kelly Harrison fights this week, against Courtney King and Victor. We're going to see what the other talent that they've signed and are keeping on hold until next year. Doing Brendan Loughnane is obviously looking for a fight this December. Rory McDonald, I'd imagine, has taken a year out. Maybe he's sort of done that with his career, hasn't he? He's earned a year off. We can give him that one, but yeah, it's interesting what PFL are going to do. But signing with Fabricio Verdum almost did a stamp down on what they plan to do in 2021, and I'm buzzing. Obviously, New Year's Eve, going in from 2021 to 22, is going to be a buzzing one, and hopefully we see some huge names and some huge fights fighting for that $1 million prize money that PFL get out. But yes, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to hit that like and follow button on Facebook as well. And we'll see you guys on Watch the Chat on Wednesday night, of course.